Okay, we're back. Part 2. Reference models and techniques. Reference models are predefined architectural templates that provide one or more viewpoints of a particular industry or function that is commonly found across multiple sectors, for example, IT or finance. Reference models are frequently considered the default architecture ontology for the industry or function. They provide a baseline architecture starting point, and the business architects can adapt to meet the needs of their organization. The following table lists some of the common reference models. One reference model is Association for Cooperative Operations, Research and Development, Insurance and Financial Industries. So one side is the reference model and the domain. Business motivation model is a generic one. Control objectives IT is a IT governance and management one. ETOM frameworks, communications sector. Federal enterprise and architecture. Is this? Yeah, it is working. Information technology infrastructure, process classification framework, which kind of works with like multiple sectors. Supply chain operations, which works with supply chain management, and a value reference model, which works with value and change and network management. What about techniques? Following table lists techniques that are commonly used within the discipline of business architecture. The BMM, the Archimate is an open standard modeling language. Business motivational model is a formalization of the business motivation in terms of mission, vision, strategies, tactic, goals, objectives, policies, rules, and influence. Business process architecture, the modeling of the processes including interface points as a means of providing holistic view and processes that exist within an organization. Capability map, a hierarchical catalog of business capabilities or what the business does. Customer journey map, a model that depicts the journey of a customer. We've talked about this before, actually. Business process architecture, we've talked about it. Enterprise core diagram, models of integration and standardizations of the organization. Information map, catalog of the important business concepts, fundamental business entities associated with the business capabilities and value delivery. Organizational map, a model that shows the relationship between the business units of each other and external partners into capabilities and information. Unlike a typical organizational chart, the map is focused on interaction between units, not the structural hierarchy. Project portfolio analysis, used to model programs, projects, and programs. And portfolios to provide a holistic view of the initiatives of the organization. There's a roadmap, models or actions, dependencies, responsibilities required of the organizations to move from current state to transition states and future states. Service-oriented analysis, used to model analysis, design and architecture of systems to provide holistic view of the IT infrastructure. The open group architecture framework, TOGAF. How does it feel Japanese? Provides a method for developing enterprise architecture. Phase B of the TOGAF architecture development method is focused on the development of businesses, architecture, organization. Following TOGAF may choose to tailor Phase B to adopt the business architecture. There's also value mapping, provides holistic representation of the stream of activities required to deliver value. It is used to identify areas of potential improvement and end-to-end processes, although there are several different types of value mapping. The value stream is often used in business architecture. The Zachman framework provides an ontology or enterprise primitive concepts based on matrix of 6 interrogatives: what, how, where, who, when, and why. Zachman framework, I'm going to Google that because I always ask those questions. 6 levels of abstraction: executive, business management, architect, engineer, technician, and enterprise. Interesting. Business architects might find the exploring of the executive or the business management of perspectives across the different interrogations, providing clarity and insight. So these are the reference models and techniques. Naturally, you can also do your own thing. You can create your own methodologies, or you can mix them, or you can break them, or do whatever the fuck you want. Underlying competencies. In addition to the underlying competencies, business analysts working in the discipline of business architecture require a high tolerance of ambiguity and uncertainty, because we don't know what the fuck's going on. We're trying to figure it out. The ability to put things into a broader context, the ability to transform requirements and context into a concept or design of a solution, the ability to suppress unnecessary detail to provide higher level views, the ability to think in long-term frames over multiple years, the ability to deliver tactical outcomes short-term, which simultaneously provide immediate value and contribute to achieving a business strategy, and that is long-term. The ability to interact with people at the executive level, the ability to consider multiple scenarios or outcomes, and the ability to lead and direct change in organizations, and a great deal of political acumen. Political acumen is I was watching an interview about a guy who wrote books about systems architecture. And one of the things the guy was focused on was political credit. And political credit is basically like, well, people kind of like start looking at you in a more, I can trust that person. You have to develop something in order for them to achieve that point in time. And that's the something that's basically considered like political credit, because ultimately what ends up happening is you do a few positive things, you earn favor, and then you use that favor when the time comes. It's very interesting to look at it that way, because ultimately, like, when people trust you, they don't necessarily trust you blindly, but if you do enough things that you earn trust, then ultimately they start trusting you. But if you do enough things then to like lose that trust, then they stop trusting you. So it's kind of like a rise and fall. It's a relationship. So it's all about the development. Impact on knowledge areas explains the specific business analysis practices within business architecture. Each knowledge area lists techniques relevant to the business architecture, and they are considered particularly useful to business analysts working with discipline and business architecture. This is not intended to be an exhaustive list of techniques, but rather to highlight the type of techniques used by business analysts while performing the tasks within the knowledge area. During business analysis, planning, and monitoring, the sixth discipline of business architecture require business analysts to understand the organizational strategy and direction, operating model and value proposition. It is repetitive, right? Current business and operational capabilities, stakeholders and their points of engagement, plans of growth and governance and planning processes, culture and environment, and capacity for change. One of these elements are understood by the business analyst that can develop an understanding of which architectural viewpoints are relevant to the analysis. Why not? Governance planning. Once these elements are understood, the business analyst can develop an understanding of which architectural viewpoints are relevant to the analysis. Governance planning and monitoring activities primarily focus on selecting which projects or initiatives will provide the most benefit in achieving the business strategies and outcomes. Determining which frameworks and models exist or are utilized within the organization. And these are the techniques. It's a lot of them. Other business analysis techniques: business process architecture, capability mapping, project portfolio analysis, service-oriented analysis. If you look here, basically, like, they end it with user stories, case scenarios, risk analysis, roles and permission matrix. Those are kind of like architecturally, right, because they're design-based. All right. Elicitation and collaboration. Business analysts working in the discipline of business architecture typically deal with a great deal of ambiguity and uncertainty when undertaking elicitation and collaboration tasks. Business analysts consider changes in organizational direction based on internal and external forces and changes in marketplace environment. The types of changes can frequently be predicted, but internal market pressures frequently make the pace of the change unpredictable. Uh, all right, I'm reading it slowly. When undertaking elicitation and collaboration tasks, consider the changes in organizational direction based on the external and internal forces and changes in the marketplace. So you're really the balance here, because the types of changes can frequently be predicted, but external market pressures frequently make the pace of the change unpredictable. As business architecture requires many inputs from across the organization, access to and the availability of stakeholders is critical to success. Business analysts elicit inputs such as strategy, value existing architects, and performance metrics. Advocacy of the organization strategy is central to the communication strategy of the business architects. As members of various steering communities and advisory groups, business architects utilize formal communication channels within projects, initiatives, and operational groups to communicate with organization strategy, explain the organizational context, and advocate alignment with the strategy. So because it requires many inputs, stakeholders are critical to success. And business analysts, they have to elicit that, and they have to be able to balance the outside world, the inside world, and the market on its own. They also have to basically make sure that the strategy is central to the communication of with the business architects. And developing basically the different approaches to make sure that if something changes with the people that are in charge, if something changes with the people that are in charge, what is the process of thought that I'm going through? I got distracted. All right. As members of various steering committees and advisory groups, business architects utilize formal communication channels with projects, initiatives, and operational groups to communicate to organization strategy. Explains the organization. Make sure you're formally doing all these things, not informally, formally, because ultimately you're documenting, and you're documenting in the form of an architecture. So you need to document properly in order to architect properly. Ensuring stakeholders understand and support the organization strategy is an essential function. You can't do something on your own without people saying yes or approving it. Business architects may impose scope and constraints on the project initiatives as means to ensure that the activity aligns with organization strategy, which may be viewed unfavorably. It is the role of business architects to bridge the needs and desires of individual stakeholders, projects, and operational groups in the context of understanding for the organizational goals and strategy. The business architect's goal is to optimize the enterprise's goal. Ultimately, while you're building, you limit, because maybe you need enough information, but you don't need all the information. The business architect's goal is to optimize the enterprise's goals and strategy and discourage activities that achieve a narrow goal at the cost of sub-optimizing the entire objective. And the business architect requires a deep understanding of the strategy, drivers, motivations, and inspirations of the organization for those stakeholders. Once the level of understanding is achieved, the business architect collaborates with all levels of the organization, including prior senior leadership, managers, project management office, product owners, product managers. You understand that once you understand the strategy properly and deeply, you'll be able to communicate with every single one and see where they fit, because that's basically where you connect it. Facilitating effective collaboration requires the business architect to be able to understand a wide variety of perspectives and context in which each stakeholder operates. You're a business analyst, of course you're going to understand all of that. And the business architecture must also be able to communicate with each of the stakeholders in a language that is mutually understood and supported. Other business analysis technique, none. Requirements lifecycle management is essential that business analysts working in the discipline of business architecture have executive support and agreement of the work to be undertaken. An architecture review board comprises of senior executives with decision-making powers, can review and assess changes to the business architecture. You're working with people that, with the right people. whatever. This group will often also engage in portfolio management by making decisions regarding the investment and prioritization change. Like all your work kind of has to be checked, and then you kind of like have to decide on a group that checks it. Business analysts working in a discipline, business architecture, understand how projects impact the business architecture on an ongoing basis and continually expand, connect, move with the business architecture. They also identify possible emerging changes in both internal and external situations. So here you use balanced scorecards. Oh. Interesting. You use balanced scorecards, you use business analysis, rules analysis, benchmarking, collaborative games, data modeling, brainstorming, document analysis, business capability analysis, estimation, business model canvas, focus groups, glossary, stakeholder metrics, organizational modeling, reviews, SWOT analysis, survey questionnaire. Remember, there's SWOT and there's TOW, right? When you flip them around, it's strength, weakness, opportunities, threats, and then there's basically threats, opportunities, weaknesses, and strengths. By flipping them around, it gives you a different perspective. Other business analysis technique, Archimedes, I don't know what that is, business process architecture, capability map, customer journey map, enterprise core diagram, project portfolio analysis, roadmap, service-oriented analysis, strategy map, value mapping. Some of them I know. What is Archimate? I'm gonna Google that shit. Archimate is an open and independent enterprise architecture modeling language that supports the description, analysis, and visualization of architecture within across business domains. Archimatetool.com. Support Archie. Okay, so there's an interesting way of how it's split. But this is actually the full business, basically. You can download it. Cool beans. Requirement analysis and design definition. Business architecture provides individual architectural views of the organization through a variety of models that are selected for the stakeholders utilizing the view. This architectural views can be provided a capability value maps, organizational maps, and information the business process model. They're working in a discipline of business architecture, employ expertise, judgment, and expertise when deciding what this and what is not, what is and what is not important to the model. Models are intended to provide context and information and result in better requirements. The architectural context and the ability to reference readily available architectural views provides information that would have otherwise been based on assumptions, and the analyst, we have had this conversation, I think, in an information technology perspective. By providing this information based on assumptions, an analyst must make no other information was available. All right, so you can't assume. By providing this information, business architecture minimizes the risk of duplication of efforts, creating capabilities. Yes, we've talked about this, I think, in business analysis scope. Design is done in conjunction with understanding needs, requirements, strategy. Business architecture provides the next to analyze the strategic alignment of proposed changes and the effects of those changes have upon each other. Business architects synthesize knowledge and insights from multiple architectural views. To determine the proposed changes, right? Like, what you're doing is basically you're looking at all different angles and then finally designing. A business architecture attempts to ensure that the enterprise as a whole continues to deliver value to stakeholder both during normal operations and during change. Business analysts working on this discipline of business architects focus on the value provided by the organization from a holistic view. They attempt to avoid local optimization where effort and resources are put into single process or system improvement, which do not align with the strategy and garners no meaningful impact on the enterprise as a whole, or worse, sub-optimizes the whole. So as an architect, your job as well is to ensure that the enterprise as a whole continues to deliver value. So whatever you're doing, the analyst basically, working in the discipline of business architecture, focuses on the value provided by the organization from a holistic view. Like if you're giving an architect, if you're providing this architecture, and ultimately what you're doing is I don't know, it's wasting time, right? Like, you know, is it still providing value? What is it? What is going on? And all that stuff. And you're practically using every single technique here. Look, acceptance evaluation criteria, backlog, brainstorming, business capability analysis. You're getting all the information you're designing. What the fuck, man? All right. Other business analysis techniques, RQMA, business process architecture, capability map, customer journey map. I want to see how the capability map looks. Let's look at it. Why not? Self-oriented analysis. It's kind of interesting. Self-oriented architecture is an architecture style that focuses on you. Fuck off. Fuck. That focuses on discrete services instead of a monolithic design. SOA is a good choice for system integration. By consequences, it's also applied in the field of software design, where services are provided by the other components of application components through a communication protocol over a network. A service is a discrete unit of functionality that can be accessed remotely and acted upon. It's microservices. Service-oriented, not self-oriented. Service-oriented analysis, just kind of look at every single thing as a function. And so you go like, oh, this person does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, like, you know, so this person does this person does that. And ultimately, like when something needs to be done, you have to talk to this person, this person, this person. So you're combining these 3 services that they provide. And you can do the same thing with systems because you're creating an architecture, right? And capability maps, what are they? Whatever the scenario your company is facing, there's one thing certain, it's the I do not want to book a demo, I want you to fuck off. It's time to keep up with all of it. Capability map is a visual collaboration technique that works like a Lego set. Every building block helps create an integrated and a clear image of your business. The building blocks in this case are building capabilities and elements that describe what your company does. What is visual collaboration? Fuck off. So here's one map, basically. Strategic capabilities, business management, account management, risk management, performance management, operational capabilities, product management, and everything else, right? Like something like that. Capability map is just like, kind of like putting your capabilities and kind of like ranking them, maybe even connecting them, I'm not sure. All right. Number 6, solution evaluation. Business architecture. Ask fundamental questions about the business, including the important questions on how well the business is performing. And answer this question, several other questions must be answered. What outcomes are the businesses, what particular initiatives or components expecting to achieve? How can those outcomes be measured in terms of specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bounded objectives? What information is needed to measure those objectives? How do processes, services, initiatives, etc. need to be instrumented to collect that information? How is the performance information best presented in terms of reports, ad hoc queries, and dashboards? Remember, ad hoc is basically like, I want something right now to finish something quickly. And how do we use this information to make investment decisions in the future? For example, At a more detailed level, an important part of capability definition and process architecture is to identify the specific performance characteristics and outcome that those capabilities or processes are expected to achieve. The actual measurement is rarely conducted by business analysts. It's usually done by business owners, operational information technology management. They are the ones that tell you if your solution is yes or no, because you require that feedback in order for you to not be biased. Business analysts working on the discipline of business architecture analyze the results of measurements and factor these into subsequent planning. They use BABOK guide techniques, which ones we have done before. I have all 50 of them. And we have other business analysis techniques like motivation modeling, architecture, credibility, capability mapping, service-oriented analysis, customer journey mapping, and value mapping. And then with that, we're actually done with the business architecture perspective. Not bad, right? I love you guys. Woohoo!